So good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dóra Mészáros. I am a project manager at Carbon Standards International, and I will be the moderator of this event today. On this webinar, we would like to give you more information on how you can become a seasonk manager and how inspection and certification looks like in case of the Artisan standard. Our presenter today is Bernhard Schulz. He is a program manager for Artisan standard certification at Co-Inspector, which is our accredited certification body for this standard. After the webinar, after the presentation, we will have a 45 minutes Q&A session where you will have the possibility to ask questions directly from Bernhard or from us. And in the meanwhile, I would like to ask all of you to mute yourself. I would like to mention that we make a video recording on this webinar with the aim that we would like to put this on our website together with the presentation of Bernhard. So thank you very much for your attendance, and I give the word over to Bernhard.
Thank you, Dora. Well, then, this was quite into it. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see presentation which I had prepared. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Good, excellent. Yeah, so Artisan seasonk certification. I'd like to start with a big picture. Let me put this one. Wait. I'd like to start with a big picture, which is a description of who are the stakeholders involved in the Artisan seasonk certification and what are their respective tasks. So we got farmers involved, like many of them, up to 1,000, which are then grouped into what we call a seasonk network. Up to 1,000 farmers, a farmer cannot produce more than 100 cubic meters of char per year. If he produces more, he becomes what we call an artisan pro, an artisan professional biochar producer, who is also entitled to produce biochar from biomass from other sources than his own farm or his neighbors. Professionals, they may produce a maximum of 1,500 cubic meters per year. And both of them, they produce biochar and they apply it on their own soil, or especially in the case of the professionals, they may sell it to other farmers or to producers of organic fertilizers for any type of soil application or other seasonk applications. They keep records about their activities, or it's the seasonk manager taking care of keeping records. So the seasonk manager is basically the entity, it's a legal entity where people train the seasonk farmers and the artisan pros to make sure that the way the biochar is produced complies with the regulation or with the standard. And this training is very, very basic in order to fulfill the standard requirements. And it must be very well organized and very well done. It's one of the major key activities of the seasonk manager. But additionally to training the farmers and pros, we need that somebody is verifying whether the training has given effect. Like, do they really produce the biochar according to what they have been trained? And this monitoring is done via an ICS. It's the abbreviation for Internal Control System. This internal control system, we will have a look at it in detail later on. And coming back to the task of the seasonk manager, so he's training the producers, he's monitoring them, and he's paying them. So once the seasonk certificates are sold to a CSync trader, the money must be distributed between the different stakeholders, and so the CSync manager, he's also in charge of paying the producers. And then other activities which are not directly related to the farmers, but to the following chain is tracking the CSyncs, agglomerating them from the different producers, and selling them to traders so that income can be generated. So this is a system of training, monitoring, and tracking of biochar, which is then verified by an external certification body. So the external certification body, which is us, we verify the reliability of your activities. We check whether you train and you monitor and you pay the producers, you track and agglomerate and sell these things according to the rules. So this was the big picture. Now going into the procedure step by step, the following slides always follow the same rule, like white letter relate to CSync manager activities and red letters relate to certifier activities. So, excuse me, I put the wrong button. So it all starts with an application, which is an online form. You just fill in, it drops into our box and we respond to it. And one of the first important steps is to set up a project plan. What is this, the project plan? It's the intent to sit together in an online meeting and then document the result of it in a written form, where the difference, well, first of all, the big picture of the project is described, like the number of artisan farmers, the number of artisan pros, the location of the project, etc., etc. But then, who is the consultancy and technology partner? It may be that you, as a CSync manager, you want to ask for technical assistance, and then we, as a certifier, want to get everybody on board right from the beginning to set up a concrete plan where dates of accomplishment are defined and everybody is aware about when which activity should have been finished. So it's a first draft of the road to go. After the project plan, we as a certifier, we got a quite complete picture of how your project is structured. So we can send you an offer, which is quite tailor-made, because we know what we are talking about. The offer is basically split into two parts. One part is the inspection according to the number of inspection days. The second part is the office work of reviewing the report and taking certification decisions and administrative parts. All together, it's summed up, and it gives you a flat rate saying this and that amount will be the cost, and then you know what you can expect in your budgeting activity. After, I'm always doing the wrong thing. After the offer, we also expect you to register with CSI. Just to have that clarified, we are basically two entities. CSI is the standard holder, and we, when I'm talking about we, the certification body, is verifying the standard compliance. So additionally, to go the steps of inspection verification with a certification body with us, you also have to register with CSI as a standard holder. It's an online registration form, and then hands-on work. I mean, farmer training, as I said in the beginning, is the essential part of your activity. There are already farmer groups, there are already projects which have trained their farmer groups, which have built up the manuals. We had reviewed them. I saw a couple of farmer training manuals, which are very good, very illustrated, and well done. Farmer training should, of course, be a practical training, and the participating farmers, they need to be trained in biochar production methods. This is the most important part. And a couple of other applicable requirements of the standard, like how to sustainably source the feedstock, how to prevent it from being too humid to keep it dry, eventual tracking the application of biochar in the field to make sure and to prove it's not sold as charcoal to be burned on the local market, but it's rather put into the soil, record keeping if applicable, etc. So all this is part of the farmer training, and you should plan sufficient time for that because it's the key activity. Then after farmer training is accomplished, an internal control system must be established. And this might be quite new to many of you, what such an internal control system is all about. And I'd like to go into a bit of details, starting with the fact that all farmers, they need to be registered with you as a ceasing manager. You need to have control. You need to know who is part of your system, what are the names, addresses, fields from where the biomass is coming and where the biomass is applied to. So from that, calculating the potential biochar yield per year, and by that, you as a whole can also estimate what the total biochar production for the whole entity, for the whole group might be. And there must be a contract signed between the ceasing manager, between you and each farmer. It might be a 3-sentence contract. When the essential things are in, that's fine. It doesn't need to be a 3-pager, but the farmer must commit to comply with the standard requirements and share his okay with you for anything related to the internal control system for being monitored. And then you need to basically cook down the requirements of the Artisan standard into an applicable manual where the many pages of the standard are explained in an understandable way, and where the farmers can also, and your internal inspectors can also rely on when they want to check again what their requirements are. As you will have to document the result of your internal inspection activities, you also need to work out the templates which you will use for monitoring the farmers. And in order to get the system run, you need to select people and train them so that they can carry out the monitoring activities. And you must define a responsible person who is supervising the internal inspectors, who is training and supervising the internal inspectors. So the intention is that you implement an internal inspection monitoring system to verify compliance with the standard. And this includes, and this is important, this includes physical inspection, but it is not limited to physical inspections. You may also implement more creative tools to monitor the farmer's activities. So once the internal inspections are finished by the internal inspectors, the responsible person of the ICS needs to evaluate those internal reports to make sure that proper follow-up is given to the implementation of corrective action. So the internal inspectors, they found certain non-compliances, things which need to be corrected. Then the responsible person needs to make sure that corrective actions are implemented within a suitable time frame. And by the end of that activity, you'll set up an approved farmer list where all members are included who comply with the rules. Those members who do not comply, they are of course not included as provisionally approved. This provisionally approved farmer list is then forwarded to the certification body, so that when we go and do the external evaluation, know to whom we can apply our sample. And when the the responsible for the internal control system realizes that the quality of the work of an internal inspector is not satisfying, then there need to be either additional training for that internal inspector, or she needs to be replaced to make sure that the integrity of the internal control system is not jeopardized. Okay, now once the internal control system is set up, I'd like to introduce a kind of additional loop. I call it the CSI loop. CSI is a separate entity, and CSI is also involved in that certification process. So as I was mentioning at the beginning, very early in the process, we're setting up a project plan, and this the discussions and the setup includes everybody who is involved on your side, includes ourselves as certifiers, and also includes CSI. So that all stakeholders, including CSI, will sign that project plan. CSI will ask you to pass through an online training, which is online and accessible whenever you want. It's not a webinar like we're having now, so it's an online training where there is a small test and will ask you to upload videos from the first biochar production loads. And those videos are being reviewed by CSI. They check whether the test is successfully passed and send you what we call an endorsement certificate, which is kind of a confirmation that you had passed through that process and that the main part of the inspection certification procedure can start. And this starts with us sending you the management plan. What is the management plan about? It's an online tool where we basically ask you to answer the respective questions. Some of them are just yes and no questions to remind you that you have to prepare. For example, let me see here, a description of a ceasing registry to be included in your internal rules. It's just to remind you that this needs to be part of the internal rules, and if you don't have it, then of course you would click no, and you would know that this still has to be prepared. And there are other questions where we need explanations from your side, descriptions, better than explanation, descriptions, how you are doing this and how you are doing that. And that questionnaire describes basically, in that questionnaire, the ceasing manual describes basically how the biochar production is organized on farmer level and on Artisan Pro level. And it also describes how compliance with a ceasing standard is assured. This just by filling in and answering the question, you're guided through that. And this management plan is being reviewed by us. So the review is a simple question and answer Excel file where if you don't understand something or something is missing, we just ask you to answer or to explain. And then in case we cannot verify it and on that desk audit activity, we just put it as a status must be clarified during the inspection, or if we are able to clarify and give an answer to our question and are fine with the answer, then we just clear it as done and okay. After that management plan review, we are sure that the description which you gave us on Artisan Pro is okay, is complying with the rules. So we go there and want to verify the reliability of your training and monitoring activities. For that, we are taking a sample, visiting a sample of farmers and a sample of Artisan Pros. So we start with a 1% sample size of the farmers and a 25% sample size of the Artisan Pro to be re-inspected by our auditor. We do not only go to the farmers and pros doing a re-inspection by ourselves, we also accompany your internal inspectors and we ask them to do an audit so that we can observe them how they're doing the audit and giving them feedback on their performance. So we try to evaluate the efficiency of your monitoring tools. As I said in the beginning, there may be many ways to control and monitor the activities, and the result of the external inspection has basically to be seen as a comparison between the result of the internal audit compared to what our external inspector is finding on the ground. So, for example, let's take a very easy example, 3.1, number of fields which is used for biochar feedstock. So if your system, your internal control system, has identified 3 fields, and our auditor goes there and confirms it's 3 fields, then he just puts in here the respective number and clears the respective control point. If it was that our inspector only finds 1 field where the feedstock comes from, the other fields are from neighboring farmers and not owned by the ceasing farmer, then there would be that difference in information, that contradiction, and it would be commented here. So it's always a comparison between your data of the internal control system with what we found during the external inspections. Now it's not going down, it's kind of frozen. Sorry. Are you still with me? Let's try again. Yeah, now it's continued. After the audit, a report is written by the auditor, which is then reviewed by a certifier. And as a result of that report review, the findings are then turned into what we call non-compliances, NCs. And those are categorized into minor and major non-conformities, and the certifier they also may downgrade it to observations, and they are turned into then the ceasing manager, you are proposing and implementing the respective corrective actions. So it's a loop which may take just a couple of days, but which may also take a longer time period. For example, the internal control system lacked substantial and important control points to be verified appropriately, then this non-compliance corrective action loop may take quite some time. But once the corrective actions are implemented, we may issue the certificate, which is containing the address of the ceasing manager as the certified entity. And in the annex of the certificate, it will show the ceasing networks and the name of the artisan pros. It's valid for 1 year. And during that period, during that 1-year period, your internal control system continues doing its job. It continues training new farmers or giving update trainings to the existing farmers and do the control and the internal monitoring so that it is assured that during the whole year, internal control system is doing its job and farmers are producing biochar according to the rules. So that after a year, and the management plan is updated. It might be slightly different from the previous one because there may have been changes, and this is fine. And then the whole process starts again with the review of the management plan, the audits, the report review, corrective actions, certification, etc. So then this loop is ongoing, and we know that we are right at the beginning of inspection and certification of Artisan Pro. So we are happy to receive your feedback, and we'll be trying to take your feedback into consideration and become better by learning by doing, basically. So thank you very much for your attention, and the floor is open for questions. Unshare the screen again.
Thank you, Bernhard. So I unmuted everyone, and now if you have questions, then you can start asking them.
Hello, I have a
Yes.
question.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon from India. I'm Vishal. Hello, sir. So I have a question. Actually, it's a clarification. You said that a 25% of inspections is required for Artisan pros. What was the percentage for biochar farmers?
1%.
1%.
1%, yes. There might be the need to change those ratios according to the result of the previous audit. So if the previous audit showed that it's the reliability of the internal control systems work is not very high, then we might, we might increase the percentage. But for the start, we are going with the 1% and the 25%.
Thank you.
Hello.
Sure.
Hello. Thank you so much, Bernard, for the presentation. That was indeed very informative. I had a quick question on the need for registering of farmers. So if the biochar is being produced by the pros, uh, are only the pros supposed to be registered with their names, addresses, fields, etc., or all the farmers who are applying the biochar also need to be registered?
All farmers and pros need to be registered, but it's just the pros which will show up on the annex of the certificate. On the annex of the certificate, it will be name and address of the farmer networks, like the network as a whole, and each single artisan pro.
Okay, got it. And I have a follow-up question on the inspection. So is physical inspection a mandatory, or if there is another innovative way of doing inspection, can that replace physical inspection completely, or does it have to complement the physical inspection?
Be creative. We really want you to be creative, but I doubt very much that physical inspection can be avoided completely, because even if you're very creative, sometimes things need to be verified on site. But for the moment, the standard is quite open. It doesn't require physical inspections for the farmers. Whereas the artisan pros, they need to have a physical inspection by the internal control system at least once per year.
Okay, that's clear. That's clear. Thank you very much.
Charlotte, I think you would raise your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the presentation also. I have a few questions for the pricing structure. For one hand, you said in the presentation just before that the payment is due, like the farmers will receive the payment from us or from you, and then also is there a specific no, a specific a specific amount which should be paid to the farmers, like 50%, 80%, something of that of the certificate, or yeah, are there any limits to that?
So to start with the first part, so the money flow is via the ceasing manager. We are not involved in the money flow. Okay, via the ceasing manager to the farmers, and there is no predefined ratio of how the income must be split.
Okay.
What was the? Did I answer all your question, or what was there something?
That was the first one, and the other one is that you said that you have in the run, you have you yourself as the certifier, and then also the CSI certificate who comes in parallel. So we went on the website of the CSI and they have a price list. But you showed us in the beginning the part where the offer stands, that you make an offer where there are a few prices listed, but are they connected with the prices of the CSI, or are the prices of the CSI on top of the your?
Yeah, they're on top. I think CSI, they just have a registration fee, a flat fee, and then they charge you upon sale of ceasings.
Yes, correct.
So the fee for registration is quite low. I think it's 300 euro. So this is not a major investment. You will basically only pay a part of the ceasing value to CSI once you generate income. So currently the value of the ceasings turns around 100 to 150 euro per ton of CO2. And from that amount, CSI is asking for a license fee of 2 euro from that 100 to 150 euro.
Okay. Yeah, I just opened them. So because there was, like, when we looked at the prices, there was a few confusions that on one hand, especially for the pro artisans, that you have the artisan standards, the global artisan ceasing standards, but then I think in the description, your manual was that the pro producers need to fulfill the EBC standards. But if you look, like the 300 euros and the 2 euros per something is at the artisan certificate. But when you look at the EBC, there's something like 1,900 euros per certification, everything.
No,
So
that's not applicable.
Okay, so
that's not applicable. The EBC fee structure is not applicable to any stakeholders of the artisan ceasing certification.
Okay, even not the pros.
Even not pros. That's
okay, good. Yeah, so I think I have my price questions done, and others can go ahead and ask more before I use more time.
And I think you will the next one.
Yes, I think you mentioned my name, right, Dora?
Yes, I
Yes.
saw your hand.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. At first, Bernard, it was interesting again. I had a question regarding the farmer registration. So, from experience, we have learned that there's most of the times not one farmer who's making the biochar, but they're helping each other. Because, for instance, when you use a light material, it's really tough work, and you need to do it with more people at the same time. And also to keep better control of the fire. Do you then need to register all these helper farmers as well, or do you need to just pick one head farmer, head artisan, make him or her responsible for that batch?
Yeah, it's the last one.
Okay, that's good. That's then easy.
You look at it. You
also,
just produced a batch of biochar on your picture.
can you see me? No, right?
I think the picture is frozen, but it looks good.
Yeah, it's frozen.
Oh, I had no clue you could see me. Okay, yes, we are producing biochar at the moment in India. And I can tell it's really hectic and it's really nice as well. It's a good process. So one more question I also had is, can you do we have to register all the cell phone numbers as well from the farmers? I can see the point. You can create some sort of an ID. You have some more better insight of who the farmer is, but it's not really necessary. You won't be calling them because they can't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it then necessary to get their phone numbers?
Now you quote me. You quote me because I'm not aware whether this is a requirement. Does it say in the standard? Did you check? Does it say in the standard whether the cell phone number has to be registered?
Well, it's not necessarily in the standard. I think it was
Then
maybe in your last or in the management plan.
no. If it doesn't say in the standard, then we won't require it as we will not require it as a mandatory information.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions.
Pavel, you put some questions to the chat. Would you like to ask them directly?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Those who don't ask, may I ask everyone to mute yourself because there is a big background noise in the line.
Okay, thank you so much. The background noise is not on my side. I think you will have to mute some people.
Yeah, I will check.
All right, perfect. Let me try. Bernard, thank you so much for the presentation. It's Pavel from WasteX. So I have a couple of questions. I mean, maybe they are for you. What is the expected certification timeline? We just submitted the registration form. Like, what do you have any expectations? How long it's going to take until we can get everything done with CSI and EasyCert?
Yes, I mean, the expected timeline is around 3 months from the start to certification. And this includes an estimated time span of 2 to 3 weeks for you to implement corrective actions.
Got it. Perfect. Then there's the quote there in the standard that says Artisan Pro production sites and entities cannot be certified under the simplified certification procedure for ceasing farmers, but need individual certification. So, I mean, is this like covered under what you mentioned that 20% of Artisan Pros and 1% of the farm be audited or you, or is it like does it mean something else? If you could like please elaborate with partners, because probably like most of our partners we're going to work with are going to be Artisan Pros, so we just would like to understand the implication in terms of cost and effort.
Yeah. We considered to interpret that part of the standard in the following way. Artisan Pros need to be monitored more closely. This is reflected in the requirement of the ICS to visit each Artisan Pro at least once per year physically, whereas there's no requirement for physical control for the farmers. Okay, so this is the intention, to have a closer eye on them. And then we thought that our task is also to increase the sample size for the Artisan Pros, but if we inspected all Artisan Pros, this would just be too much of an effort and too much of a cost for the ceasing managers. So we wanted to start with a 25% and then list each and every Artisan Pro on the annex of the certificate and give them individual certification through being listed with name and address on the certificate attachment. I mean, this is the way we interpreted it, it's not very clearly described in the standard. We had also communicated with CSI about that, and they approved our approach.
Okay, I think I understand it a bit better now. In terms of ICS, do you have any like templates? Because it's the first time we're going to do it as an organization, and I mean, I guess we can provide something to EasyCert and CSI, but if there is any template we could benchmark our own ICS against, that would be fantastic.
Okay, we did not develop templates by now, to be honest. We know that there are other organizations like the ones we had in our previous meeting, Plan Wu and Biochar Live. You may remember Jason and Freddie presenting in our last webinar. They have already implemented an internal control system since years, and they of course have developed their templates and their methodologies. You may contact them to see whether you can learn from them in that sense, or whether you can cooperate to get things on track quicker and easier. But we from the certifier side, we did not develop templates by now.
Got it. Understand.
And we haven't planned to do so. There is no plan to do so from our side. At the moment, there is no plan to do so.
I can imagine that, like, long term could be useful, because then you can implement the best standards for every organizations you work with.
Yes and no. I mean, I was also thinking about that at the beginning, but I came to the conclusion that if I prepare templates are tempting to use them, and I would rather see that your creative potential would not be the same as if you have to develop something by yourself. I mean, we come from, and we have a lot of experience with the certification of smallholder farmers in organic food production. And so if I created templates, they would be pretty close to what we do in organic food production. And I see that for the carbon C-Sync certification, we would be able to implement other tools and, as I said, be more creative. And I would like to, I would love to let myself surprise by ideas, new techniques and technologies developed by yourselves.
Sure. Okay, understand. I guess final question here was, like, so you're presenting today a project plan. The way we operate is that we have a few farmers right now, but we are scaling up, right? So if we were to start a certification process with EasyCert and CSI, there will be like just a few farmers we would list, and then every month we'll be adding more and more. So I'm just trying to like understand how it could look in terms of the project plan. So there will be like a few farmers, and then if on a monthly basis we're adding more, especially Artisan pros, does it require constant engagement by EasyCert and CSI? Or once we get certified, then like, how would it mean, like, after more Artisan pros, right? Does it require another certification a year later?
Okay. Well, this is a very good question. I'm going to take note of it, because we really need to define that.
Just to like just to give you like a background. So we don't have like like a one big project with like 1,000 farmers sitting in like one piece of region, right? But what we have is that like where we are like building up the organization and reaching out to more and more and more, right? So
yeah. So let me answer it from my personal perspective, but it's not an approved answer. We would need to define it together with a standard holder. But let's try to see it from the following angle. What we do is, as I mentioned before, verify the reliability of your work. If we come to your place, do the audit, and finally come to the conclusion, yes, these guys are doing a good job. They're training well, they're monitoring well, and they know how to comply with the rules, then it would make sense to say there is sufficient confidence to have them include more farmers, because we know they are monitoring well and they are training well. And the point would be that you would need to notify us and update the respective farmer list and farm and artisan pro list. And then we would need to update the certificate when we come for next year's inspection. So this would be my answer to it, but it needs to be decided with a standard holder. So don't take it
to summarize. Sure. So to summarize your proposal, we do like an upfront certification. Then let's say on a monthly or quarterly basis, we update the list, and then it's verified through an annual audit, right? So that's your proposal. I understand it's not confirmed, but that would be your proposal.
That's right, exactly.
Perfect. I mean, like no more. I mean, maybe one final question, and I haven't put any here. There was what Charlotte started asking before. Do you have any expectations? What would be this like the certification cost upfront for like a standard organization that is looking to certify with you, or at least a range, right? So that we can budget for it.
Good question. But I mean, to give you a range, it will be something between 3,000 and 6,000 euro, just as a rough range.
Got it. Thank you so much, Bernard.
Just one, like 3,000 to 6,000 euros per year per first signing per year.
Per year, yeah, because we need to do the audits on a yearly basis. So summing up the number of inspection days and certification, it will come out more or less between 3,000 and 6,000. But yeah.
But that is not connected with the with the amount of pros or artisans,
yes,
like.
Yeah, because this is the reason why there is one of the reasons why there is such a big range. Because if there are more pros, we need to do, and more farmers, we need to do more audits. The sample is bigger, and if you had, for example, a farmer group with 500 farmers and no pros, we are going to visit around farmers. If you have a group of 500 farmers plus 50 pros, then we would have to visit 13 pros, which is taking a lot more time. So it's really difficult to rely on it's difficult to give a concrete number, but it's a big range.
Hello?
Yes.
Can I say something? I'm not sure if I'm in line now.
Okay,
I just have a suggestion for the registration of potential farmers. Maybe you can think of a system where we can have open spaces for potential farmers that are not yet filled in with names, but like a number already registered, like same with Artisan Pro for those projects who know that they are going to expand. And then during this time, because as long as they don't produce, there will also not be any damage done or any false misleading information. So if we have like anonymous ones that later in the next year certification come with a name, that we get the potential to fill maybe 10 additional farmers or 2 additional artisan pros, because that feels like a very it makes more sense than wait for the other year or waiting until maybe you feel confident that our training methodology is good enough that you trust us, so that we have like nameless farmers, so and so many, maybe we can reduce it to a certain percentage. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I mean, we can discuss that when we will be discussing this question. Thank you, Parker.
So then I wanted to ask, during the certification process, we have to conduct the training and we want to get some routine in monitoring and producing the biochar in line with the standards. Does this biochar that is produced during this period of the 3 months already count and can be accounted for later in the registry?
Yes. If it turns out that the farmers have been trained well and the biochar was produced according to the standard requirements, then of course you can count them as correctly produced biochar batches.
Okay, and then there's the incentive scheme, because we have to kind of document how we transfer the money to the producing bodies, either farmers or Artisan Pro. Where I live in Indonesia, we have thought of different incentive schemes, from buying the feedstock of farmers to guarantee them an additional income through selling part of their harvest waste, to maybe letting them participate with bonus payments if they produce more than 1 ton a week or something. And do they all like is there a standard that you require, or can we just think of the best possible local solution that we think is most suitable?
Think of the best solution.
Okay, and then there's this one more thing. I don't know if I should bring it up because it may create some confusion, but the production security of the farmers, like the clothes, the masks that they should wear when we handle all these things, who is going to be responsible for that? I'm asking this because I know I try to tell my workers to wear a mask, to wear security shoes, but sometimes they don't. So it's a tricky legal thing here. So the moment, what's the responsibility of the C-Sync manager towards all that?
I mean, the responsibility of the C-Sync manager is to make sure that those things are being put into practice. But there is no, I mean, there is no, because you were mentioning legal issues. Of course, it's a private voluntary certification which you're doing with us. So with us, there is no legal issue involved. But
there is actually, in the moment where I have a contract with the farmer that is required by you, in that moment there is a legal connection between the C-Sync manager and the farmer, and in that moment we will have to find a solution. I'm not saying that the certifier is responsible for this. I'm just wondering how much attention we have to put into this, and it may not even have anything to do with the results of the certification, but I think it's an issue we should think about, because we're dealing with something that's very hot and it's produced unmonitored. Of course, safety instructions will be part of the training. That's very clear. At the same time, I have my experience here in different trades, and it's you can say one thing and then you come back in the afternoon and things are taken up because it's hot, because it's uncomfortable. So it's a tricky, yeah. It's something that crossed my mind, so I just want to bring it up because I'm not sure how to handle yet, but just wanted to see if from your side you have certain.
Well, we see the C-Sync manager to be responsible for that, and if it's difficult for you to implement those rules, then it might even lead to well, to become a non-compliance, and every non-compliance, if it's not corrected, might lead to a suspension. So it's part of your responsibility and part of our supervision activities. Yes. But
Okay.
I'm fully aware about the challenge which this exposes for you. That's right. I never thought about the legal challenge, so that's new to me. But you might be right. I didn't go into that. I was more thinking about challenge in the sense of the farmers will use that safety equipment.
Yeah, it may be legally different if I buy the biochar from the farmer, then it's his responsibility and he's the producer. A little bit different when the Artisan Pro, he would be responsible for whoever he employs under his wing. So okay, I guess the legal contract has to be written in the proper way. Okay, that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have the last few questions. If you have still a little time, the first question would actually be to all the guests, because I think we already talked a little bit about it. The Artisan Pro right now is mainly or basically for the Contiki method, as we understood it. But we wanted to ask if any of you are also dealing with using different methods to produce biochar. I don't know if somebody is, they could raise their hand if no, but it would just be something which would be interesting for us.
Yeah, good question. I know, Charlotte, that I had received questions about other technologies than Contiki, not only from you. I had received more emails on that respect. I
see that somebody's raising their hand, but it's only in the like I can't. Yeah, there are some.
So if you want to answer to Charlotte's question, just raise your hand, and Dora, she will let you in for saying something.
They can unmute themselves.
Okay, good.
Hi, Charlotte. This is Jessie from Malaysia. Hi, Dora. Sorry for joining the call a little bit later. Some of my data overrun. We are exploring TLAT mainly for the ease of setting up the system. A little bit of context of what we are doing in Malaysia. We are working with indigenous people in the forest, so it could be Contiki could be a little bit too sophisticated for various reasons, including what Volker has pointed out, the legal issues, etc., etc. So TLAT is a more mobile and cheaper system that we are exploring at the moment. So that is an alternative system that we are looking at.
Interesting. But you also plan on certifying with Artisan?
Yes, absolutely. We are exploring that at the moment. So I have missed quite a fair bit of the meeting. So I will reach out to Dora separately to explore that. But I caught the tail end of the discussion where you mentioned that it costs about 3,000 to 6,000 per annum for the certification of the C-Sync. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a session separately with Dora on the 21st. So I will kind of bring this up again because we are also exploring with some of the service provider to have the MRV box installed to kind of monitor the whole process to ensure the quality of the carbon which is produced. But I think with TLAT, the MRV is kind of impossible, or it doesn't work with the system. So this is something that we might need to take offline with Dora.
Okay. Yeah. That's...
Anybody else wanting to comment on the pyrolysis technology question of Charlotte?
I also got a text in the. I already saw it just for.
Okay, we got some text messages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and we at TerraPreta were also using TLAT mainly, and we asked this question in the last webinar to Hans Peter, and he said like basically the same thing. Contiki or TLAT doesn't really matter, is what he said. meaning the standard is kind of TLAT is still under revision, right? Or still about to, or you need to handle in like something. But Hans-Peter back then said like it's the same.
Okay.
I don't know how you, Bernhard, maybe you can elaborate on that. What's currently happening if we are applying with TLUT?
No, I just that's the same level of information I've got. That is a second option. Exactly.
If I can throw a question in regarding the technology, then the question is how can we upgrade the technology to create less emission, and how would a machine like that be certified? Because we are currently developing different optimizations. We're trying to get a better working Adam retort. We try to invent a metal kiln that redirects all the emissions or the gases, the biogases, back into the combustion chamber. So how could these technologies be certified or accepted and create a better ratio, for example, from biochar to carbon to CO2? That's just regarding. I have another question later, but now let's stick with the machine, with the technology part. Yeah, so that's my question. I don't know if it fits into the Artisan world, but of course, the ideal scenario must be that we leave the Artisan world as soon as possible with technologies that are environmentally even more friendly than what we try to reach here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we defined the type of information which needs to be presented to CSI to verify whether a new technology would be sufficiently safe and environmentally friendly. So it includes like things like a detailed description of the technology and the process scheme, and mass balances like input of biomass, output, the amount of gas or heat or whatever, which is then produced and captured and reused, and an analysis of the biochar, which is produced with that technology from 3 different biomasses. Because if we approve it, then it will be approved for in general. So just to get an idea whether there's differences between biomasses. So EBC analysis of the biochar for 3 different biomasses, and emission measurement of methane and nitrogen gases and CO and particles. So this needs to be presented, and a handbook of how to use the pyrolysis unit, including safety issues, which were just mentioned by Volker before, and measures to avoid smoke, contamination, burns, etc. So this must also be included in the handbook of the description of the pyrolysis unit.
But that's for Artisan, or that's for Artisan?
That's for Artisan, yes. Just to develop something which could be included as an additional pyrolysis technology on Artisan level. If you want to include a new pyrolysis technology for the EBC, this would be a lot more extensive requirement. So it's some basic requirements to approve new low-tech technologies.
Okay. If you're done with the machine technology, then I would like to ask one more technical, question that I think will come up. But I don't, Charlotte, are you still waiting for technology answers?
I have a different, I have a different answer, but I can write it. It's, I think, very specific, so it's not for here.
Okay, I want to ask, for example, if our farmers think biochar production is really good fun and they want to produce more than 100 cubic during this period of 1 year, do I ask them then to bring their son or their brother and register this person as a second farmer, or what do I do? Because he's technically not allowed to. On the other hand, 100 cubic is not, it's not even 1 ton a week. So how would you suggest us to deal with that?
Well, this might be an option, and in the long run, there should be that the biomass for the farmers must excuse me, the feedstock which is used by the farmers is kind of related to the size of the farm where the feedstock comes from. So this is a possibility, Volker, but it will have got its limits. So he won't be able to include all his sons and nephews and produce 1,000 cubic meters from 2 hectares of his own farm. Then
no, I'm talking about 120. I'm talking not about 1,000.
Exactly.
I'm talking about 120.
Exactly. Yeah, and for that purpose, I mean, this would be a workaround, what you just said. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think we could also think about from our side as a certification body, we can and should think about a good answer to that question, because you gave the answer, which is a workaround answer, okay-ish, but perhaps it would be better to define a procedure how those farmers can legally produce more biochar without getting into problems.
Yeah, I'm coming from the field again, and I think also to guarantee the quality of the biochar, what will happen in the end is that there will be people gathering around one kiln, and there will be 2 or 3 people in one farming group of 15 people who have that, who know how to handle everything, and the surrounding farmers will bring the feedstock there, and then they kind of share the income as a farming group. So that's probably a very realistic scenario. That means I only register 1 or 2 farmers, but then all of a sudden, somebody brings some feedstock from another farm. It's officially not allowed. It will happen. I cannot stop them. I cannot monitor them. They see it's great in the big picture for protecting the climate. It's actually good if they don't go into the forest and chop down freshly grown trees. But I just want to make sure that later we don't get a penalty or something when something like this exceeds.
Yeah. Very good question. No good answer. We got to discuss that. I took note of the issue.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
There is Jessie raising her hand still.
Maybe she didn't take it off after she had spoken yet.
Okay.
Does anyone have still questions?
One from me.
Yes, go ahead.
Can I go? What's the pathway for a laboratory to get accredited to test the biochar, or can anyone, any laboratory follow the guidelines and then publish the results?
No, there are requirements for the lab, and we already defined them, those requirements. And I'm not sure, because I wasn't aware that week whether they have already been put online or not. But they're exactly defined. It includes, for example, that they would receive a biochar sample from a reference lab. So we have got one main lab, which is trusted and by us, and they would send a sample of biochar to the lab which wants to become recognized. The lab does its job, sends the result back to our reference lab, and if they are within the expected margin, then we would approve it. But
We can't hear your sound.
Sorry, is there a fee involved?
sorry, I was muted.
Probably
What?
was just my laptop.
Did you hear me? Did you hear my answer
Yes.
concerning the labs? Yes. Okay, good.
Okay. Can I ask a question also?
Yes. So just to finish the answer to the last question, because I think I still didn't finish. So if you want to get more information, just send me an email, and I will send you the link to the procedure.
Okay. Is there a fee involved, by the way?
Not that the lab will the reference lab will ask for a fee. Dora, you know how much they ask?
No, I don't know that, but for us, you don't have to pay for that. But of course, you have to pay for the laboratory.
But it will be, I mean, like the cost for a sample or something. It won't be much. I don't know whether it's 50, 100, or don't know, but it will not be much because
Depend on your requirements.
It depends on the requirements. Like
it will depend on
the
your
EBC.
requirements, and it will cost 200 to 300 euros, more or less, per sample.
Like on the website of the Carbon International Standards and the 4 listed laboratories, it was 700 euros.
No, but this
on
is
EBC. That's EBC.
That's EBC. That's a
I know
different
that's that. I know that that's EBC, but that those are also the laboratories you trust, don't you?
But this is a different range of parameters which need to be checked. So for Artisan, it's a lot smaller range.
Okay.
Thanks, Bernard.
But this is actually with CSI, the lab approval. Anyhow, I can send you the link once you send me an email. I'll answer.
Okay. I want to find out. So from here, what will be like the next steps? And perhaps how far are we from maybe being registered and traction starting to sort of happen in terms of the registrations?
So there is a registration form on the website of CSI. You fill that in, and afterwards we set up a meeting with you where we can talk about the project plan. So what you are going to plan exactly. We finalize the project plan, involve the co-inspector or the certification body as well, or if you will use a consultancy or training partner, then we will involve Plan Bu or Biochar Life because they are our strategic partners for that. And once we finalize, all of us says okay, basically to this project plan, then afterwards the whole process can start. You can start with your trainings. We will give access to that, to the online training. And once you complete that, then you can start the work as a CSync manager. And later on, the certificate or the inspection will happen. And then you get your certificate. So basically, this is the process.
Okay, so are you going to send us the link or?
Yes, I can. Yes, I will show you where you can find on the website, but if you send me an email, I can also send you the link. That's also an option.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have some questions? If not, then I quickly share my screen and I share some practical information. I hope you can see my screen. So in case you have any questions after the webinar, you can send your questions to this email address. I will also upload it to the website. If you would like to download the registration form, you can find it on the website of Carbon Standards under Documents. And what's next? We will have further webinars on the Global Artisan Standard. So if you are registered to our newsletter, you will always be informed about that. If you are not registered yet, then I suggest you to register it on our website. And then you will be always keep informed. And if you have no further question, then I think we can close this webinar. And I would like to thank you for your participation. I hope it was useful for all of you. And as I mentioned, please feel free to contact us if you have further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you to
Thank
also
you.
for your time.
Okay, thank you also from
Okay,
my side
thank
for your
you.
attention.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.